look, when you're thinking about the exposure you have to Microsoft and these data center build-outs more broadly, how much they need to factor in the voter, the consumer right now?
Well, I think it's super smart for them to get ahead of this. I'm sure they let the president announce it first, but Microsoft has always been good at anticipating under Nadella, and I think being a good citizen in the community is important. But it's not the first time we've heard resistance. Tesla got a lot of pushback when they moved to Texas. They took over a city. They bought people's homes. It was disruptive, and I think we're seeing the same thing. I would argue to a lesser extent with data centers, but importantly, this is what happens in a transformative economy. We saw it also with the clean energy push, windmills, solar panels. People don't like that in their backyard. So the fact that they're getting ahead of it, having a goodwill tour, taking on some of the costs, helping the community, I think that's very important.
It's interesting that it comes the day after Meta went all in with Meta Compute, hiring new talent, thinking about the way in which they're going to navigate the need for compute from a sovereign perspective, from a leadership perspective. But Nancy, how much do you think that we are seeing companies dive in on this opportunity enough, or are we in some sort of bubble territory when it thinks about the build-out?
I don't think we are in bubble, Caroline. I mean, if you just look at technology stocks in general, in 1999, it was something between 70 and 90% lived above the 200-day moving average. And I know you're asking about the build-out stocks as well, but in this environment, we're at 62%, which is below the S&P and certainly below bubble territory. So there's still a lot of skepticism. We own a lot of the nuclear names, the build-out names, and we think the backlogs are incredible. So I don't think that we're in a bubble in that regard.
The other big story that we're tracking, Nancy, is Meta. And before I give the details, transparency, as you know, is important to the program. You have a very, very small Meta position, but it's fair to say you've been bearish on Meta. And in particular, Mark Zuckerberg relative to the other tech companies that you're focused on. But they're cutting jobs, a portion of the Metaverse team, and then shifting the focus to data center, but also to the Ray-Ban Meta glasses, right, which is the modus operandi by which many now interact with Meta's voice-based AI. Your thoughts on that?
Well, I think it's the sooner Zuckerberg gets Metaverse out of the vocabulary and the headlines, the better off it is for the company. So I think it's a good move overall. I'm not probably the target market for the glasses. Maybe I'm wrong about that. I used to say, why would anyone want a camera in their cell phone? So that was about 30 years ago. So I could be wrong about that, but I do think they've obviously identified a market. The demand is there. That's where they should be focused. I never really understood the pivot to the Metaverse. And that was, frankly, one of the reasons we exited the stock, because it seemed highly distracting, and I couldn't, the commercial value was not clear. So I think he's doing the right things, and he should pull the Band-Aid off and be done with it, because the Metaverse, I don't think, is the future of the company.
The details which Bloomberg reported are that EssilorLuxottica, who make the Ray-Ban Metas, have installed capacity of 10 million units, and they're in talks to double that, 20 million units. And if the demand is there this year, 30 million units. But again, it's these things. These are just normal glasses, or these things. As an investor that wants to leverage what's coming out of AI development, do you have a clearer sense now of how more widespread human beings actually use an either voice-based or text-based AI assistant?
Yeah, it's hard to measure, Ed. One of the things that we don't capture in GDP is free stuff. And for a lot of consumers, AI is free if you're using Google. So what we're looking at is the commercial cases. I think the adoption is much quicker than most people understand. I think we'll start to hear about that in earnings. I've hung my hat on productivity growth. We got it again last quarter at 4.9%, which was above GDP at 4.3%. So we are seeing improvements in productivity productivity, which will allow a sort of tepid job market to still be, I think, a disinflationary force, but also will not put further stress on the consumer. Remember, too, nobody's talking about the fact that new business applications have skyrocketed. So if I'm a coder that's now out of business and I start a company, that has exponential value. It's different than when we gutted the industrial belt of the Midwest. So I'm really optimistic on what these gadgets and the announcement from Apple with Google. I think that's super important. It validates Google as the leader. Google's one of our 12 best ideas. So we've owned it for a long time. We added it to our value portfolio in August of 2024. It was a value stock, if you remember, and now it's probably the leader in AI.
I like that you go there because we've got a new $4 trillion player to add to the pack that is Alphabet, Nancy. But I love the way that you push us forward to 6 best ideas, for example, for 2026. Walmart, among them, they're entering the NASDAQ, and of course, they're going all in on AI. What are some of the other key bets you're making? We're looking at them now.
Oh, thanks for bringing that up, Caroline. So Walmart's been a winner so far. AMD is another one of our members. CrowdStrike, we think, is AI tailwinds are going to drive growth in that company, even with and the Signal acquisition was important. Tesla's in that group. Oh, brother. D.R. Horton, we made a bet on housing, which has worked so far this year because we thought the administration would jump in. And then Quanta, which is building out the grid and has an involvement in data centers. So we like all those names for this year. Last year's portfolio was up about 23%, even with ServiceNow in the portfolio, which was down 27%. So